Hey everybody, welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Durling. Will's with me, and we're talking to Matt via Zoom.
Yeah.
How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Really good.
Cool. We're here to talk about an album that's been out for a few weeks now, and it's gotten mixed reviews. We happen to be a fan of this band and done episodes about them before. We're talking about the latest from Greta Van Fleet, The Battle for Garden's Gate. And we're just going to go through track by track, talk about each of the songs, and just talk about the album. So first of all, let's get to the album cover. I've just got the CD here. Very cool. It's embossed. It's not embossed, but it's shiny. Even the song titles on the back. Each song title has like a different symbol or a rune to represent it. This is very cool. This is very Tolkien looking, I think. This setup here. If only somebody had it on vinyl. Ladies and gentlemen, Will's got it on vinyl.
Glare. There we go.
Yeah, very cool.
Now, I'm sure this would look really cool opened with the big gatefold, but that will not be me.
You don't open your new vinyl?
No.
Where would you get that from? Anyway, that said made in the Czech Republic. That was. Did you notice that?
Yeah, mine says that too.
Interesting. So the booklet, which I'm assuming is a bigger version of that, has like a key on it. And is that one of the kind of like one of the symbols? Anyway, so it's got the different artwork, the lyrics of the songs. Now I find that the lyrics and the credits are printed very, very small. I find them hard to read, but maybe that's just because I'm old. But let's talk about the album. We'll go through track by track and just basically see what we think of it. So the way we're going to do this, we'll start with Will, we'll go to Matt, and then we'll come back to me. We'll go through track by track and talk about the Battle at Garden's Gate. So Will, start us off with track 1, Heat Above.
So Heat Above, I had mixed feelings on this album when it was first talked about coming out. The first single was released. I wasn't super hyped for it and just waiting for the full album to come. But this, I think, was a really good opening track for the album. It really set the tone, kind of, for what to expect through the rest. There's a lot, I noticed right from the start, more so than Anthem, there's a lot of extra background stuff going on, whether it's organs or keys in the background, more so than the previous album. And the guitar solo really caught my attention with those interesting the slides and stuff that they did. That was much different than what they've done before.
Excellent. Yeah. So we've already got 4 singles from this album. Heat Above is the third one. It came out around February 10th, I think, of this year. Can You Feel My Love? Rising with the Heat Above. So it starts off with those pastoral kind of keys like Will mentioned. And something I just wanted to add to what Will was talking about. I love how they're already starting to reference in the lyrics some of the other previous songs in the previous albums. Like there's a reference to The Fire Still Burning, which is, the black smoke rising, that whole thing. Marching across the land is a peaceful army joining the band. Walking hand in hand to an anthem loudly sung where they stand.
That's cool. Like referencing, they're not copying, but just making reference. They're like not in jokes, but they're ins. Like they're ins for the insiders, the people that know a lot about the band.
Yeah, and they're already starting to reference songs that you'll hear later in the album. May Our Tears of Rain wash down to bathe you. So Tears of Rain is a song that we'll hear talk about a little later on the album.
Would you say this is a concept album, Matt?
Well, that's what by the time I got to like track 3 or 4, I was like, maybe this is kind of like a loose little concept. I mean, there's not like a through line, like a story that you can follow, but a lot of the songs definitely have similar themes, a couple of themes going on. So we'll talk about that stuff too.
Yeah. So what I wrote down about this song is it starts out one of the first, when it starts to kick in, you hear this double bass. And just for a second, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool? Not if they did like if they did like a thrash metal song, but if they did do, and one of my, I'm not going to call it a complaint, but it would be cool if there were a couple of faster tempo songs on this album, like Highway Tune was. There's nothing like that here. So you think for a second, maybe this is going to be they're just going to start off with a fast one, but no, it settles into its groove and it's good. It's really good. Great vocals, great vocal melodies, like like there's some really good stuff happening there. And I do think that it has at least a loose story, if not a concept. It almost sounds like these songs were all written in the same, universe, for lack of a better term.
Yep.
So now we're going to get to what I think was the first single.
Yes.
Was My Way, comma, Soon. So Will, My Way Soon.
So this song got me really excited for the album because it kind of was more upbeat and a bit faster than what was released after. I find the drums are really busy in the song, and listening to it, like the chorus and stuff, it's extremely catchy. So I was thinking we were going to be leaning more towards like the first EP type of material with the catchy choruses and the upbeat loud drums, but I really like the song. I think it's great.
Yeah, so like Tim mentioned, this was the first single, and actually this was their fifth song to top the Billboard charts. I guess we're talking more like the rock charts, but back in January it hit #1. I do find this is the most kind of cheerful song on the album, and after we're done with My Way Soon, it settles into a groove like Tim said, and it's a little more cerebral, and it's not as upbeat. So, but the lyrics, I've packed my bags and I've got my freedom. I've sacked the rules so I don't have to heed them. Yeah, it's a really cool tune.
Yeah.
Could have been.
And the lyrics, I like the lyrics. So the lyrics aren't your typical, I think their lyric writing's improved. You listen to that first EP and it's great, especially considering like the median age of those guys. But I think their lyric writing has really improved on this. This is not a frivolous pop rock album at all. This is made for repeat listens, and I think that's where the more you listen to it, the more it comes out. I'll admit right now, the first time that I listened to it all the way through, it didn't blow me away. But the more I've listened to it, it sinks in. And then I'd find I'd get parts of the songs in my head. So next up, go ahead.
Oh, it's quite a long album too. We didn't really talk about any specifics about it, but it's over an hour long. It's like an hour and 4 minutes. Yeah. And if people were kind of expecting them to take Safari Song and have like a full album of that, you might be a little disappointed in that regard.
Yeah. And the thing is, yes, it is over an hour long, but there are 12 songs on it. So they're long songs. A lot of what I would describe as epic songs, including next one, Broken Bells. What do you think of this one, Will?
So completely different from My Way Soon. This has like an acoustic guitar solo and then an electric guitar solo and a long instrumental portion. Like, I feel like they've gotten a lot of hate for the Led Zeppelin comparisons and a lot of hate for that stuff. I think this album, just based on the first 3 songs, is them showing what they can do. Like that, they're not just Safari Song, just straight ahead rock. They can do these other weird things that bands now just aren't doing anymore. The vocals on this song really stand out to me with how Josh gets his range as well. So I think this is just them showing off what they can do. And to me, the album so far is just great.
I agree with you, Will. So Broken Bells, almost 6 minutes long. So I think the shortest song on here is like 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So quite a few long songs. Broken Bells was the 4th, and I think it's the most recent single, just came out in March. And like Will said, I would call this kind of like a wistful ballad a little bit. But one of the things that really stood out to me, and Will made mention of this, almost exactly 4 minutes in, it goes into a guitar solo. And I think this might be one of my favorite things they've ever put to record. Now he's doing a simple kind of a lot of wah effects, and it's like if you're a guitar player and you play in like the key of A or B minor, I guess if your guitar's tuned down a little bit, but that between the fifth and seventh fret, and you let that A string ring, and it's just so easy to get into a groove and a solo like that. And man, I really love that solo. It's got that waka waka kind of thing, and very cool.
This, so far anyway, in the times that I've listened to it, this is my favorite song on the album.
Oh.
This is just epic. I really, really like this one. And I'd written down epic and great soloing, like great guitar work on here. It's not just like these guys came out and they, everybody, they got a lot of hype when they first came out because they were so young, right? And also they sounded a lot like Led Zeppelin, but it's not like that's as good as they're ever going to get. They're improving. They're augmenting their sound. There's guest musicians on here. Now, how that would sound in a live context, I don't know. They may have to, and maybe they do. Do they get a fifth person on stage? Because they kind of need a keyboard player.
They didn't have a fifth person in 2018.
Oh, okay.
But they only had, that was their anthem wasn't even released at that point.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah,
I don't know if they've
changed. If they're really concerned about reproducing the stuff, they may need an extra person on stage. But that, lots of bands do that. But yeah, I think this is my favorite song on the album. At least it is right now. Next up, track 4, Built by Nations.
So this is another, right from the beginning, from first listen, this is my favorite song.
Really?
And it's just heavy guitars, which I was expecting a little bit more of, but honestly, I'm kind of happy they stuck with the more groovy, mellowed down. Even though this one stands out as heavier, if this was on a heavier album, I don't think it would be seen as heavy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I really love this song. I think it's just a great song all the way through.
Yeah, it starts out with these really cool pan guitar sound effects. I don't know if you've had a chance to listen to it with headphones on a lot. I think the theme is sort of like a man versus nature kind of thing going on. And this was at the point in the record where I kind of started wondering if this is sort of like a loose concept album. A lot of the songs starting to have the similar themes about nature, and there's a lot of stuff about traveling to distant lands and starting anew and that sort of thing too. So yeah, really like it.
What I wrote down about this song is that this is the one time on the album, the one time that they kind of lean into that Led Zeppelin, because the riff kind of sounds like Whole Lot of Love, I think. Okay. Like it's got a little bit of that, but I've seen some other reviews of this album. Everybody's entitled to their opinions, but I really think that they just rip off Zeppelin. That's got to stop. That's really got to stop. That's old now. That's old now. That's like people talking about Oasis 6 albums into their career and saying, "Oh, they just rip off the Beatles." It's like, get over that. Get over that. They are really developing their own sound. You can't mistake Josh's voice really for anybody else. I hear bits of things, but it's him when you hear, and because it's him, he's the sound of the band. It's a great song. It probably is the heaviest song on here. And I think it is the one time where they kind of lean towards the Led Zeppelin style that they started off with, but not that much. So, everybody get their Zeppelin comparisons out with this song, and because the rest of the album is really not like that at all. Okay, soapbox fell over. Next up is Age of Machine.
So when I heard they were doing a new album, and they've done the Rockin' EP, and they've done some covers, and they've done compared to other bands, after their first single was released, I said, okay, what they're missing now is like a 7-minute song. And this was this the second single released?
Yeah,
yeah,
came out in December.
So this is exactly what I expected them to do, was do a 7-minute song, something that they could show off what they could do. It's completely different than a 3-minute song that would be released from another current band. And I think they totally nailed it.
Love it. Yeah, they've got this guitar. It starts out with the guitars way, way back in the distance on the intro. And then Josh gets into his kind of yodeling voice, I guess you would call it. And yeah, it's one of my favorite tracks on the album. It's almost like you said, Will, it's like 6 minutes and 53 seconds long. And it's got kind of like a science fiction theme to it. But again, talking about kind of traveling to the interstellar shores, plugged in since the womb, prophet of the dune, like very kind of science fiction-y.
Yeah, I wrote down it's another epic. You know, they're really good at that. Now, what they need to make sure they don't do too much of, I think is they don't want to have too many songs that are called something of something, because they have a lot of those. But that's no detriment to the song. It's great. Next up, track 6 is Tears of Rain.
This is one of the ones when I first listened through. Well, I'll go back to the last song just for a second. The first 5 songs on this, after my first listen, I knew the first 5 songs were some of, if not the best recording they've released. For someone who likes the heavier stuff, I think the first 5 songs on this could be their top 5 songs they've done. So when I heard Tears of Rain, I didn't really like it, but it's grew on me. It's grown on me a ton since I've listened through this album over and over. I think the song kind of stops with like a minute and a half left, and there's just like random guitar doodling, and Josh is showing off his range again. And I fell in love with it after a few listens through.
Awesome. Yeah, this is the one. So you can tell by the name of it, Tears of Rain. It's sort of like a ballady type song. It starts with acoustic and a tiny bit of piano. And one thing I will tell you, if you haven't picked up the album, you're kind of thinking about if I'm going to get into this band, go check out on their YouTube. They've got, it's called the Candlelight Sessions. It's sort of they've been releasing like live versions, the band playing in like a confined studio with some really cool themes. I love the version that they do of Tears of Rain at these Candlelight Sessions. And they've also done another one. It's more of like a stark white kind of set with everything's white and blown out with lights, and it was like white Marshall stacks, and it's very cool. But even so, what they've done is they kind of stripped out some of the effects that you would hear on the record when they're playing it live, and it's still a pretty cool tune.
That's the sign of a good band, when they can leave that stuff out and you're not noticing it. That's what I had written down for this one. It's really the first ballad on here. This album also, I did mention this before, is produced by a guy named Greg Kirsten, who in rock circles, he's probably best known for, I think he produced the last couple of Foo Fighters albums. He's produced Adele, like he's produced all kinds of different artists. So I guess as far as rock producers, he's one of the big names now. And I think the album's really, really well produced. Next up, so we get track number 7, Stardust Chords like guitar chords. So what do you think of this one, Will?
I do like this song, but it's probably the most forgettable on the album for me. It has some catchy parts, but I don't think it's as strong as the rest of the album.
All right.
Okay. Kind of starts off with that whoa, and then it's got a lot of marching band kind of drum fills and stuff. It's got the roses in the bush cut down at the garden's gate. I really like so Tim talked about all the little icons from the booklet. I like this. So the Stardust Chords, it kind of reminded me of like a guitar fretboard with the lines and the little dots and that sort of thing.
Yeah,
so
it's like tablature.
Yeah, I think it's kind of neat looking at all the different icons and trying to see how they came up with that stuff. So I really like I find that the ending is a really good showcase for Josh's range. So I've heard a lot of people say that he does a lot of screaming on this album, and I don't really agree with that. I think there's a little bit of that, but yeah, I'm really impressed with his singing on.
I think he gets a more aggressive. He gets kind of a more aggressive tone sometimes, but I think it's all in the right places and all for emphasis. I wrote down this. It's not my favorite song on the album, but I think it's my favorite riff. I think this song has a great riff to it. It's very, very catchy. Next up, and I think this was a single too, Light My Love. Well,
I really love this song. I think it kind of plays the role of You're the One off of Anthem with another like a slow love ballad. It's like kind of right in the middle. It's pretty much perfectly in line with You're the One. But when I was listening to this, I was like, okay, they can pretty much do anything they want to, because this is another, compared to the first 6 songs, totally different again. Sounds different, so they're just showing off what they can do differently for another time.
Yeah.
If I may say, the beginning of it has like this twinkly kind of piano thing that sort of reminded me of like a Jim Steinman kind of song. I think it's probably other than that, I think it's probably the simplest song on the album. Like there's not a lot of big sound effects at the beginning or at the end or through the song. And yeah, it's a great little love song.
I wrote down, it's got a really nice piano melody. Just a simple piece of writing, but I like how it kind of lulls you into that sense of, it's going to be, whatever. And then Josh just says, yeah, like he does that thing there. So no, I really like that one. It's it's only 2 songs away from the last ballad, but you're not like, oh, another ballad. I think the album's pretty well paced. Next up is the interestingly titled Caravel.
So I didn't know at all what that was, so I had to Google it. I wrote it down. So I guess a caravel is like a ship from the 16th, 17th century that allowed, and it represents like the freedom that it gave the people because they could travel and have movement. So I guess that's what the song's about.
Yeah.
Just having the freedom. And it's another one like Tears of Rain, where I didn't like it at first, and then it really grew on me, and I really like it now.
I'm there with you, Will. Actually, this was my least favorite song the first time I heard it. I was going to mention that whole thing about the Caravel. I wasn't sure if people knew about the Portuguese. It's kind of before then they were building these gigantic ships. And when they developed this highly maneuverable kind of sailing ship, the Caravel, in the 15th century, it allowed them to explore like the west of Africa and the Atlantic Ocean. Anyway, again, we're into themes about traveling to distant lands and that sort of thing. So kind of sticking to the concept. This one really explores Josh's yodeling voice. So we've heard his screaming voice and his falsetto voice and his really high voice, and we got some of the yodeling voice. I would like to see him kind of develop more of his. He's got other kind of a little deeper voice that he does sometimes. But yeah, no, I didn't like this song that much at first, but it really grew on me, just like it did for Will.
I think that over time, as he gets a little bit older, I mean, this happens with all singers. I think his voice will deepen, and you'll probably hear him exploring that a little bit more. Hopefully he doesn't abuse himself so that he can still sing these songs, years down the road without lowering them 10 steps. But I'll be honest with you, I didn't think to look up the word caravel. I thought they made it up. I thought it was supposed to be like a play on caravan, which I guess it kind of is, because it's about traveling and freedom and getting away from where you are. I wrote on this song, it's got great guitar tones. Like there's some really, really meaty guitar tones you can really sink your ear teeth into. And like you said, it sounds really good with a good pair of headphones. Next up, the charmingly titled The Barbarians.
So I don't have a lot written down for this, but I really like the guitar riff in this song. Like it has a lot of changes. Same with the drums in the background. Like instead of like a minute and a half of the same thing and then switching, it's like 10 seconds of one riff and then a change to something else and then change back, which keeps it very interesting.
Yeah. The first 45 seconds start out with the kind of harpsichordy keys, like those that really take you back kind of thing. And then it's got another killer wah guitar solo. But this song is actually might be the least interesting song for me on the album. It was Caravel, and I kind of get this one, the Barbarians. I get this one mixed up with Stardust Chords a little bit. I find they sound a little bit similar. There's one little bit of it though. It's got he does this little wheela 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 thing that kind of reminded me of an Ace Frehley kind of lick.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, I know exactly the part you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, when I first looked at the song titles when I got the CD, I couldn't help but be reminded of the Darkness song Barbarian. It's nothing like that, but yeah, some cool wah-wah guitar in this, and like I said, like you said, the harpsichord, old school keyboard sounds, very 60s sounding. Cool song. It doesn't stand out, but I did not like it. So second to last song, kind of an old expression, which these guys kind of strike me as like old souls, like older than their ages, kind of says. Trip the Light Fantastic. Well, what do you think of this one?
So again, in this song, there's a lot of organ and piano stuff going on in the background. There's also like short vocal breaks, like in the middle of the song, where it'll be Josh will be singing and then it'll just stop, and there'll be the music will continue, and then he'll start singing again, and then he'll have another short break. And I think that keeps the flow really interesting and keeps it different from, it makes the song stand out for me, which sometimes when you have an hour-long album with 12 songs on it, the last few can just get forgotten. But with those vocal breaks and having it different, this one still stands out to me.
Yeah, really, really good points, Will. This one's got a really heavy keyboard heavy intro. And something I wanted to talk about was, so Sam Kiska is known as the bass player of the band, but really there's not a lot of, there's some really cool bass lines, but you don't hear a lot of it. It's not really like high up in the mix, but it's very heavy on the keyboards. Of course, Sam does that stuff as well. You see him in the videos, he's playing the keyboards at the piano or such. So Trip the Light Fantastic. Is that kind of like a 70s term for ballroom dancing or something like that? I tried to look up what that actually meant.
I actually think it's a way, way older term than that. Like, I think it might go back to the 20s and 30s. I know that in, I think, the early 90s, Paul McCartney had an album called Trip the Live Fantastic.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
But it's an old expression.
So something I'm probably kind of looking into this a little bit. Again, I find this has got some kind of science fiction-y, getting away to another land kind of lyrics. We didn't really talk about the band are actually from a really small town in Michigan called Frankenmuth, Michigan. It's actually a population of about 5,000 people, which is very similar to the population of the town that I grew up in, small town. However, they were only 27 minutes from a gigantic city of Detroit. Whereas, we would have to drive about 8 hours to get to Boston or some such thing. But this town is known for its Bavarian style architecture. It's got like a Germanic kind of roots. So I thought that was kind of quirky, and that probably just being in that town kind of played into some of their the lyrics here, like trying to get away. And the song actually, it says, to comet across a blistering hue, beyond the spaces of false and true, away from the world we have riddled with scars, to be wholly free and amongst the stars. It kind of reminded me of, do you remember Battlestar Galactica?
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not about Battlestar Galactica, but kind of gave me that kind of nostalgic thing.
It's interesting because they can, at different times, the lyrics put you in mind of sci-fi. They put you in mind of like J.R.R. Tolkien. They put you in mind of, all sorts of different. I mean, the artwork. This could either be, in the future or way, way in the past. If we just don't know. I didn't really have any notes about this song, and I think that had a little bit to do with what you both said. As good as the songs are, when you get those last 2 or 3 songs, you just kind of run out of things to say about them. You're like, yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. Now, I say that I did have more to say about the next one. And the next one and the final track on the album is The Weight, as in heaviness, of Dreams. What do you think of that one, Will?
Yeah, so not only did we get an almost 7-minute song, I think this one's like 8 minutes and 54 seconds or something. So it's almost a 9-minute song to end the album. And from what I understand, it's quite deep in the lyrics, like gold mines melting, the men in the sunshine represents like everyone is striving for riches and wealth and wants just more and more and more, but they don't think about the negative effects of what all that wants. So it's using your wealth to better your life, I guess, and your experience is not just physical things. But to end an hour-long album with a long song and not making me bored, I really like the song, and I think it's a good end to a great album.
Yeah, that was one of my two small criticisms, if I had anything sort of bad to say about the album. Ending it with such a gigantic 9-minute song. It starts off really slow and it's got all kinds of different sections, although it actually only has the two same verses in one course, and they managed to make those fill out the entire 9-minute song. And then it ends with these simple arpeggiated chords again, and suddenly this hour-long album is done.
Yeah. I found that it had a really long fade, or it had a longer fade than it needed to. Like, you probably could have shut this song off 2 minutes before they actually did.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Wish they condensed it down to like 5 or 6 minutes instead of almost 9.
I didn't do the math on this, but I wonder, this might be to date their longest recorded single track.
Probably.
I can't think of anything on the previous albums longer than that, but I didn't time them out. It's interesting because the icon, the symbol in front of this, almost looks like a snowflake. I don't know if that's kind of. And another cool thing about it is that this is embossed inside.
Yeah, I love it.
It would look really cool. Well, pass me that vinyl and go look over there. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so that ends. Whatever you want to call it. I guess it's their second full-length album. I consider Black Smoke Rising, I mean, it's got 8 songs, but anyway, it's the latest from Greta Van Fleet, The Battle at Garden's Gate. And normally when I end a review, I'll say, well, if you're not a fan already, this isn't going to change your mind. I think this one might. It's not the blatant, it's not borrowing as much as their previous stuff was, even though I had no problem with that. Again, like the reviews that just go on and on about the Zepp comparisons, I really think they need to stop, because I'm not hearing a lot of that on here. What I'm hearing on here is the ethos of Zeppelin. The experimentation, the not being afraid to use various keyboard sounds and acoustic guitars and different kinds of percussion and outside musicians. But I'm not hearing the direct, member for member influences as much anymore. As a matter of fact, I think we talked about this when we talked about Anthem of the Peaceful Army. Josh, his voice, I think, has gone from sounding a lot like Robert Plant to be starting to sound a little bit more like early Geddy Lee. So there's a change going on. And I mean, they're just young guys. Yeah. So who knows? I hope they're around for another 20 years and punch out another 10 albums. I'm ready for it. So that's our review. Do you guys think they're on the right path? Would you take another album like this, or do you think maybe next time they do something completely different?
Well, I wasn't expecting to like this as much, but this is my favorite thing they've released so far.
Really?
Yeah. And I think going back to that, changing their sound, if you didn't have Josh's voice between Anthem and this, I don't think anyone would guess they're the same band.
That's true. He's kind of the glue of keeping their sound together because he's so distinct. What do you think, Matt?
Very good. Yeah. And I think it's kind of interesting that they had, over an hour to do this, an hour long of album. And there's no real, other than My Way Soon a little bit, there's no real obvious hit singles on this album. You would say maybe some of their earlier stuff. They just kind of felt like, it seems like they're doing what they want to do.
I don't think they have anything to lose like other bands. Like they've been popular and around since they were like, some of them were what, 18?
Yeah.
They were playing in bars and stuff at like 15, 16 in Detroit. They had a live album out back then. If this doesn't do well with the way that, I mean, they're going on tour with Metallica, they're not hurting for money already. So they can just, I think they can just do whatever they want.
Yeah. Like I said, I hope they stick around. So curious out there to what you all think of it. We're obviously, we're Greta Van Fleet fans and of varying ages. So let us know in the comments what you think of it. This is our review of The Battle at Garden's Gate, the latest from Greta Van Fleet. And thanks everybody for watching this edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. We'll see you later.